I've been in commercial real estate since 2013, but I only really started investing in 2019 after founding my own commercial real estate brokerage. Since then, I've developed a 42-unit townhome community, acquired over 50,000 square feet of office and retail space, and I'm in the middle of a $19.2 million mixed-use development in East Nashville. And I get asked all the time, how can I get into commercial real estate investing? So, knowing what I know now, here's what I would do if I had to start all over. First, I'd get my real estate license. Getting my real estate license really opened the door to my investing career. I spent years learning the ins and outs of leasing and managing commercial real estate, which is critical to your success as a commercial real estate investor. After all, if you don't know how to find tenants for your space or manage brokers that do, you'll experience higher than average vacancy rates and your investment just won't perform. The same goes for management. If you're unable to properly navigate the day-to-day, you won't be able to maximize your income and maintain the property to its highest potential. Having my real estate license also allowed me to make money while I learned about the investing side of things. So not only was I making commissions helping investors stabilize and manage their properties while learning how they did everything, but I was also able to utilize my commissions to fund my first investments. Because commercial real estate brokers can get a commission on the purchases, I bought my first commercial property with no money. Technically, check out this video here, since I was able to roll my commission into the down payment and brought investors in to cover the rest. Then I would go work for a boutique developer or firm. Boutique development and investment companies simply take a different approach to commercial real estate than the bigger shops. They're more opportunists, meaning they'll take on any type of project as long as it makes financial sense. I started off working as the in-house leasing agent for a boutique development firm in Nashville, and because of that, I got to work on office, retail, industrial, multifamily, and single-family customs. So in my time with that firm, I was exposed to value-add projects, new construction, leasing high vacancy properties, managing stabilized assets, you name it, I got the experience. And since the firm was smaller, I got to sit in on the weekly development meetings, which gave me the knowledge of how to put together and run my own development projects. Now, had I gone to a larger commercial real estate brokerage or even a regional or national development firm, I probably would have been pigeonholed into being the single tenant net sales broker or into working only on multifamily development. And not that there's anything wrong with either of those by any means, but I wouldn't be in the position where I am now to take advantage of a value-add office tower in Chattanooga while developing micro units in East Nashville. Working with a boutique firm gave me the opportunity to learn, and on someone else's dime, how to pull together investment and development projects in a variety of asset types and classes. Now, I'd also be intensely strategic about networking. I didn't really start networking until my third year in the business. And that year, I tripled my income and made six figures for the first time. My first couple of years in the business, I spent 100% of my time cold calling and door knocking. Again, not that there's anything wrong with that, but I found networking to be far more fruitful, especially if you're able to brand yourself and your business. They say that your network is your net worth, which makes sense. The more people you know or that know you, the more opportunities that you'll have to do deals. So networking with as many other professionals in the industry as possible will help you earn a higher income when first getting started and will definitely give you a head start when you jump into investing or developing. These contacts could assist you with your projects, such as a real estate attorney or an architect. They could bring you opportunities, such as wholesalers or other brokers, or they could even be investors in your deals. It takes time to build trust with others and to surround yourself with a team that you can trust. So take this time before you're in the middle of a project to network and build those relationships. Some key industries you'll want to network with include architects, attorneys, commercial brokers, developers, engineers, general contractors, and so many more. Then I'd take advantage of educational opportunities. Commercial real estate education can be very hard to come by. I'm sure you've already figured that out if you're watching this video. There just don't seem to be very many resources available out there for newcomers like you'll find in residential real estate or even other industries. However, if I had to do it all over again, I'd dive into those offerings that are available out there and work to become the most knowledgeable in my chosen field. So I'd first focus on getting my CCIM designation. CCIM, which stands for Certified Commercial Investment Member, is an organization that provides investment education for anyone interested in commercial real estate. These classes are largely taken by brokers, but it's not uncommon for lenders, property managers, and anyone that interacts or invests in commercial real estate to go through with their designation. You'll be learning how to underwrite investments, analyze markets, negotiate deals, and so much more. Now, getting your CCIM is expensive. I definitely won't sugarcoat that. Each class can range from $1,500 to $2,000, and that's before travel and board. However, the knowledge that you will gain and the resources you take away will bring you far more than that. In fact, shortly after I completed my CCIM 104 class, I was able to underwrite an investment opportunity for a client in Chattanooga for over $1.8 million, on which the commissions alone covered the cost of my classes and some. Then I would dig into books and podcasts. There are a handful of books that are, in my opinion, must-reads for the newcomer to commercial real estate. I won't dive too far into them since we put together a list of the best books on commercial real estate, which I will leave in the description below, but they are packed with knowledge that will, at the very least, expand your thinking. And don't even get me started on podcasts. I'm constantly amazed by the amount of content that is coming to the market now that just wasn't available when I first kicked off my career. There are a number of incredible shows out there covering all aspects of commercial and multifamily real estate. Shameless plug, check out my show with apartment guy Bruce Peterson, Commercial Conversations Over Coffee. Then I would also follow blogs and other YouTube channels. Each week, I'm releasing new content on my blog and YouTube channel to educate my audience on how to invest in commercial real estate. No matter which aspect of commercial real estate you're interested in, whether it be value-add office space all the way to multifamily development, there's a blog out there for you. There's also a growing number of creators offering video content on YouTube too, which I feel will continue to become more and more popular with each passing week. After all, and you probably already know this, it's far easier to watch a quick 5-minute video explaining some aspect of CRE than it is sometimes to read a blog about it. So after that, I would join a real estate mastermind. Joining a mastermind was certainly a pivotal moment in my journey. I was already headed in the right direction, but it catapulted my career. Why? Well, because I was surrounded by the best of the best, the most knowledgeable and successful individuals in the business world. I was able to learn directly from investors and developers that were already where I wanted to go, which is the best way to learn commercial real estate, in my opinion. That's how I got connected to Bruce Peterson, who is now my business partner and mentor. He and I met at a mastermind in Austin, Texas, where he was giving a talk on how to syndicate multifamily real estate. I was instantly intrigued because I'd never even heard of multifamily syndication before, so I went up to him after the talk to pick his brain. Now, here we are 3 years later on the hunt for our next project. Which, side note, because I don't know when you're going to be watching this video, but as of today, Bruce and I are actively looking for 200 plus multifamily unit project in the Tennessee area. So if you have anything, leave me a comment below or find a way to shoot me the project. Joining a mastermind also pushed me to become a better person in every aspect of my life. You become the people by whom you're surrounded. And since I was surrounded by a number of successful entrepreneurs that had written a book, I wrote a book. That's also where I picked up some of the most productive habits I have today, including my early morning routine and my affinity for writing. Then I'd become a specialized generalist. Now bear with me because I know that sounds contradictory. In commercial real estate, it's not uncommon to get pushed into a hyper-specialized niche, such as, like I said earlier, the single tenant net investment sales guy or the industrial tenant rep guy. Now, obviously, I'm coming from a broker's perspective here, but I said my first step would be to get my real estate license, so we're just going to roll with it. I will say, in some cases, it makes sense to niche down to this extreme. If you want to be the go-to broker for single tenant net investment sales, you should focus solely on becoming the best at that position and nothing else. If that's your chosen career path, then it will be very difficult for other brokers to compete with you after a few years. However, I subscribe to Tim Ferriss's philosophy on becoming a specialized generalist. Niche down, but really add something in that makes you unique. Doing so will prevent you from going extinct should the market shift out of your favor and will help keep you nimble. Here are 2 ways that I've done this. One, I'm a commercial real estate investor that started out in brokerage. So I bring a unique perspective to the table whenever I'm working with investor clients at the brokerage who are from out of state, which is quite often since Tennessee was the #1 state to relocate to in 2020. And 2, my commercial real estate brokerage, the Cobble Group, is boutique in the sense that we will work on office, retail, industrial, doesn't matter, but we only work within East Nashville and the urban core. Note how my firm is really generalist. We will work on any type of asset, but it has to fall within our geographic boundaries, which helps us specialize. On the investment and development side of things, my team and I are able to tackle just about any project that comes our way, as long as it's within that territory, since we know what our cost basis should be, what the project would rent or sell for, and how long the space might sit on the market. So ask yourself, how can you become a specialized generalist? Then I would find a mentor and partner. As I said earlier, the best way to learn the mechanics of commercial real estate is from a mentor that's already where you want to be. Just like anything in life, learning from those with experience can really help you get ahead instead of having to fight through every trial and error on your own. And you likely won't have just one mentor. There are different things that you can learn from different business professionals at different points in their careers. I have mentors that are several steps ahead of me on the ladder, some that control $1 billion in assets, and some that are in completely different industries and bring a different perspective. It's important to realize that you won't just have one single mentor in your life, and your mentor can also become a partner in your deals. The first deal I ever did was a piece of dirt that I took to a developer with the intent of building townhomes on the site. That developer partnered with me on the project and showed me how to go about the entire development process, making it far easier for me to learn instead of having to do everything on my own completely from scratch. When I wanted to start diversifying into multifamily, I began discussing that opportunity with Bruce. Whenever I find an apartment complex we want to buy, he's involved from the very beginning because he's far more knowledgeable than I am in that field and really knows how to get it done. Next, I would start underwriting a deal a day. It wasn't until I committed to underwriting every deal I came across, even if I didn't think it would be of interest, that I began to really understand the numbers on a totally different level. I think I got this one from Brandon Turner over at Bigger Pockets. Underwrite a deal every day and send out an offer each week. The year that I really committed to the process, I purchased 4 buildings. The year before that, I owned 0. It took me 5 years to get to that point though. 5 years of brokering deals and helping other investors make all of this money before I realized that if I had a better grasp on how to model out investments, that I could increase my income and start buying deals for myself. Underwriting a deal is far less complicated than many make it out to be, too. You simply need to have a piece of software or a spreadsheet that you like, and you need to practice with it as much as possible. Hence the underwrite a deal a day. Check out this video here for how I underwrite my deals, and I'll leave a link in the description below for the models that I use. Now, finally, I would take the leap sooner. Like I said, I was just a commercial real estate broker for 5 years before I had finally built up the courage to jump into my first project. Think about that. 5 years making everyone else money. I always felt like I needed to listen to one more podcast, read one more book, or ask a mentor one more question. Then I would get it. But the problem with that is that there's always one more podcast. There's always one more book. It's just an excuse that kept me from facing the fear of a new challenge. Now, to be fair, it's difficult to really learn how to do a project until you've done one. The best way to get experience is just by doing it. You have to get out there and take that leap. Okay, now that you know my step-by-step process of what I would do if I had to start all over, check out this video here on how to find the best commercial deals, and I'll see you there.